Hey guys, welcome back to another edition of Intuitive Angling. Really appreciate you guys making some time for the video. And out here in the yard, man, it's a beautiful June morning. I'm so glad it's finally getting to be warmer out where you can get out here in the morning and not freeze your butt off. So I just want to take a chance to do today's video. And before we get started here, pertinent to today's video, I just want to invite everybody, if you guys are out there looking for a new or used bass boat, check out Boatworks here in Springfield, Missouri. I'll include a link in the description. It's a great way to support the channel. Also, they have complete financing through their company called Summit Financing. And if you use my name, if you mention my name with Summit Financing, you'll get a $100 gift certificate to the Baitworks tackle store here in Springfield, Missouri, where you can get you some old school jigs. So just want to throw that plug out there. Okay guys, so the video I want to do today, I've talked a little bit in the past about bass boat driving. It's sort of a pet peeve of mine as far as people that don't know how to drive a boat. And it's getting to be warmer now, so you get to see a lot of people out there fishing that haven't normally been fishing, and you get to see a lot of the mistakes they make. So what I want to do in this video is I want to give you guys some pointers. I want to highlight some mistakes people make driving a boat. And I think in doing this, it's going to make you guys, it's going to make you better drivers. It's going to make you safer drivers. I've been driving a bass boat, since, for over 45 years, and never had one single accident. I fished in the most dangerous conditions arguably any pro can fish in, all the Great Lakes, through all kinds of storms, jumping mud flats, going through shallow stump-filled waters, all over the country, man. I've done it all. I've seen it all. I've seen all the potentially dangerous situations that you can get in. I've been in multiple tournaments where there's guys been killed in the tournaments I've been in through poor boat driving practices. I was right behind some guy that got killed at a Bassmaster tournament up in New York back in the 80s. So been around a lot of it, man. So I'm going to go through what I consider the important elements to bass boat driving that's really going to make you a lot safer. The first thing that you have to do, the most important thing, is sort of the foundation behind all this type of stuff, is you've got to slow down. Man, the biggest mistake that I see guys making out there is they just drive too fast under the wrong conditions. Now, I'm not saying in the right situation, if you've got a clear line of sight, if it's calm out, everything's set up right, that you can't, run balls to the wall. But what I'm saying, most guys drive way too fast when they should not be driving too fast. And the situations where you have to just slow it down and not drive fast is if you have boats around you, if you have rough conditions, if you have lots of turns involved, if you have any type of potential underwater hazards, early in the morning, tournament takeoffs, that type of stuff. A lot of times, particularly in turns, that's where a lot of people get in mistakes is they just go too fast around turns. Excuse me. So the first thing, guys, you just have to learn to slow down. I see so many guys out there just running hard and practicing or goofing around when they got no business. The second thing you have to do is be aware of everybody around you. You have got to be aware of these goobers that are driving around you, either recreationally or other bass boats. The most common rule of the road, guys, if you see somebody coming towards you, veer right. If both of you guys veer right, you're going to go off in the opposite directions and you'll be okay. Next thing is when you're around a lot of boats, whether it be like fishing on the weekend or in a tournament or whatever, don't try to save 2 seconds here and there by cutting in between the bank and a boat to try to cut some guy off around a point. Excuse me. Or try to, save just a second or two by trying to do something that's stupid to get around a boat to pass them. That's nothing but ego. It's not going to save you but a couple minutes in the course of a day, and it's going to completely reduce your risk of having an accident. If you're in a situation where it's a little sketchy, like say for example you're coming up around a point and there's boats around you, just back off a little bit, swing out wide of the point, and just be safe. That's the main thing about it. Next thing out there is you guys have got to learn how to operate your trim on your motor. Another, probably the biggest mistake I see guys boat driving is they don't understand what that trim button's for. You don't have to have that motor trimmed out fully or even high when you're running in rough water. That's one of the biggest mistakes that I see guys making, that just pound the hell out of their co-anglers. When you're in choppy water, you have got to put that trim down, and you got to learn how to adjust that trim based upon the size of the wave and the length of the wave, because sometimes the best way to do it is to run that trim all the way down where you can use the V of that boat to cut through those waves. Sometimes you have to have sort of like a in between. Sometimes you need to slight trim to get that nose up a little bit where you don't stuff the nose into a little bit bigger wave. But most of the time I see guys running way too fast in rough water with their trim too high. And what happens is, when you do that, is you're running on the pad of the boat, and you're not using the V to cut those waves. And all that's going to do is give you back and neck problems and increase the danger for you and your co-angler both. So understand and learn how to trim. Next thing you have to do is you have to understand your equipment. You have to understand the characteristic of your boat and how it operates in different situations. Every boat out there is designed different, and every boat runs different in chop. So the biggest thing that I want to give you guys here is you have to understand how your boat lifts when you're making a turn, because one of the biggest, most dangerous things in bass fishing is if you make a turn, a fairly sharp turn, whether it be choppy or smooth, and you nose hook that boat. In other words, the V of your boat hooks that water and catches that water when you're making that turn, and that's when people spin out and flip their boats. So you have to understand how your boat's lifting to use the pad to make that turn correctly. Again, you can get out a lot of those problems just backing off and slowing down. When you're going around a turn, you don't have to freaking go balls to the wall around that turn. You can back it off to half throttle and get around that turn and then open it up again. Don't feel like you got to just have it hammered down around that turn. That's one of the most stupid things I see guys do all the time with that. So it's another thing that's going to save you a big problem. Sorry about the coughing. I've still got all these allergies and sinus infection I'm getting over. We got so much pollen here at the house. The pollen is like an inch thick after a day here. So the next thing I want to talk about, we've talked about this a little bit before, and for some reason, guys, there's a lot of sensitive types that get offended when I say this, is get rid of that dang hot foot. Guys, we've done a video on this before. In my opinion, hot foots are not the way to go for safety or for taking care of your body. We've talked about this many times. I've never ran a hot foot other than practicing with one and trying to figure out if I wanted to use it. I've used hot foots in some of the boats in the Bassmasters Classic. I ran some of my buddies' hot foots to get a feel for it. I can tell you right now, there's a tremendous amount of expert boat drivers that agree with me on this, that they don't use hot foots, and there's a couple different reasons for this. First of all, the main thing for me with a hot foot that I don't like is the fact that I cannot run sitting on my one knee when I'm in rough water. Now, a lot of people say, well, you're out of control. You got one hand on the throttle, one hand on the wheel. That's all you need, guys. Like I said, I guarantee I fished in rougher water than 99. The only people that have fished in rougher water consistently than me or if you live on Lake Erie and you fish every day. Other than that, none of you dudes out there have been as the rough water I have over the past 40 years without a hot foot and never had one single issue of safety on there. If you don't have a hot foot, you can actually rest a lot of your weight on one knee on the seat, and you can put one leg on the floor, and you can take tremendous amount of basically pressure and pounding off of your neck and your spine by riding like that in rough water. And when I'm talking about rough water, I'm talking about waves over 4 or 5 feet tall, big giant waves. And you're not going fast, guys. People say, well, that's dangerous, Randy. You got one. It's not dangerous. I'm not running but 15 miles an hour. I'm running between 12 and 18 miles an hour, most of the time about 12 miles an hour in giant waves. But this does, on top of that, by learning to ride on your knee with one knee on the seat, it elevates you another 12 to 15 inches higher that you can see over the front of that boat. and you can read these giant waves. You can read how they're coming towards you better than sitting down flat on your butt in a seat. It's absolutely the safest way to do that. Also, not using the hot foot on there. It's a lot, less fatiguing if you're making long runs with it. I just think it's a lot better way to do it. And like I said, there's arguments both ways on that, but like I said, guys, I have used this my entire career. I've experimented with it. I think it's the way to go with that. So it's sort of like braided fluorocarbon. There's a bunch of sensitive guys out there that if I talk about braided fluorocarbon or not using a hot foot, it's like I'm insulting their mom. So if you're one of those dudes out there, just chill out, man. So anyway, that's some of the highlights, guys, of just learning how to drive a boat safe. Just be aware of your surroundings. Slow down. Biggest thing, slow the heck down and learn to understand how to use trim and tilt, because I can tell you right now, there's a lot of guys out there that don't know how to use trim and tilt. I see it at every tournament. I'll see the same thing. We'll be taken out off in a tournament. You know how the waves are all crazy everywhere, and there's inevitably a handful of dudes out there that got their motor full trim, balls to the wall, going through that rough water like this, and their co-anglers are just like almost on the verge of getting knocked out of the boat. Guys, just knock it off. Trim that motor down. Learn how to use your trim and tilt. Learn your equipment. Know the limitations of yourself and your equipment. If you don't understand the limitations that you have in your boat driving skills, that's when you're going to get in trouble, I can promise you. But if you just slow down, be aware, you're going to be okay out there. But if you're one of those guys that, think you want to save 2 seconds here and there, and you're full of testosterone, balls to the wall, wide open round points, you're going to be one of those guys that you read about in Bass Fan that we lost another pro out there eventually. That's what's going to happen. So anyway, guys, just a few tips for this morning. Thanks for tuning in again, and please hit that subscribe button if you haven't. It'd be much appreciated. We'll see y'all.